I'm ready. What up? Let's get to it. So first off, I gotta say, roll tide, skull tide, man. News is Will Reichard is kicking great, is kicking great. OTAs. News is where it is. He's been hitting 55 yarders, 60 yarders, etc. Duh. You ask me, that's great news for the Minnesota Vikings. You hear me? Oh yeah, us as Vikings fans know. We've seen some piss poor kickers, huh? Greg Joseph being the most recent one. You dig me? You getting my drift? Yeah, Joseph was very inconsistent. Now, we hit some big kicks here and there, but very inconsistent, too inconsistent, huh? But the fact that the Vikings drafted a kicker, man, who's already showing progress, hitting 55 yarders easily, you hear me? So that's a great sign, great news from Skull territory, dog. We know how imperative it is, just special teams in general, but especially having a kicker who can be clutch, having a kicker that's clutch, that's gonna make the majority of his kicks, if not all, especially the big time, big game kicks. That's a weapon, dog. You hear me? That's a true weapon. You hear me? Just like having a great punter who can pin the opponent deep in their field position, right? Deep in the red zone, dog. You hear me? Put them behind the 20. You hear me? Flip the field. A punter of that caliber is a weapon, dog. So yeah, some people sleep on special teams or overlook the kickers, overlook the punters, take them for granted, huh? But at the end of the day, those are your weapons, very important weapons, dog. Flip their entire field, change their game, win their game, dog. And like I say, as Vikings fans, man, we've seen kickers from Gary Anderson to Blake Walsh, you hear me, Blair Walsh, etc., to Greg Joseph, the most recent, you hear me? So we know what's going on, man. We know how important it is to have a clutch kicker, dog. Pressure on the line, bottom line, he gonna contribute and pull through. You hear me? Will Reichard is that guy. Like I say, skull tide full of pride, roll tide full of pride. Now, I've seen him kick at Bama for years, and he is Mr. Clutch. He's missed some field goals here and there. He's even missed some big field goals. But majority of the time, you're talking about record breaker, history maker. You talking about weapon, huh? One of the biggest weapons that Bama had. You hear me? Don't sleep on the kicker. Don't sleep on your kicker, dog. Heavy, huh? But I'm glad the Vikings, finally stepped out and drafted a kicker, who can play at a high level, who can really kick his ass off, homie, especially when he's in that zone, huh? Heck yeah, man, let's get it, dog. And it makes it even better. He's from Bama. Let's work, huh? Heavy, dog. Big skull here, man. Let's just get into some of this story about Will Reichard, man. Shout out Will Reichard, dog. Shout out Bama. You know what it is, man. Roll tide full of pride. Yeah. Let's get into some of this article, though, man. Yeah, heavy, man. Let's get into some of this article, man. Holy hell. Vikings record already looking extremely impressive. Let's get it, man. Kicking is definitely a sore subject for Minnesota Vikings fans. Facts. It's a position group that has provided the Vikings fan base with plenty of memories, but about 90% of these memories are gut-wrenchingly terrible. Facts, dog. We know what it is, like I just said. So when Minnesota decided to use a 6th-round pick on former Alabama kicker Will Reichard in this year's NFL draft, plenty of eyebrows unsurprisingly raised in reaction to the selection. Raising for what? You need a kicker, dog. You need a clicker, point blank, period, huh? With there not being as much media access to the Vikings OTA practices as there is for the team's training camp, we haven't really heard too much about how Reichard has been performing this spring. Well, 2 local beat reporters recently filled that void when they shared what they saw from the Minnesota kicker earlier this week. Minnesota Vikings rookie kicker Will Reichard is like a robot. Given the success of a number of undrafted kickers throughout NFL history, Justin Tucker, Adam Vinatieri, Robbie Gould, to name a few, it's completely fair to question the team whenever they decide to use a draft pick on a kicker. But what are we questioning, though? You hear me? What are we questioning? If the kicker is good enough to use a draft pick on him, you use your draft pick heavy. But based on some of the info that was recently shared, it seems like the Vikings might have landed a great kicker in this year's draft. During a recent episode of the Purple Insider podcast, Purple Insider's Matthew Collar and the Pioneer Press's Dan Mizutani couldn't stop raving about what they saw from Reichard out on the practice field earlier this week. Collar began the discussion with the following comments. Holy hell, that's it. That's the analysis. And I mean that in a good way. Oh my gosh, he just kicks the heck out of the ball. He was kicking 55-yarders that were going at the top of the goalpost. Hey, that's the leg, dog. You hear me? That's Will Reichard. That's what he brings to the table, man. Talking about why they waste a draft pick on a kicker, because he's that guy. Because he's that guy, you hear me? And then even when they lined up everybody, he kicked it from the logo, which will be 60 yards, and there's a net behind it. So there's the 2 points you kind of look at to give you an idea of how well he kicked it. There's the goal post, obviously, and then there's a net behind it. All right. His 60-yard kick cleared everything and still landed in the net. It was like 5-7 yards behind it. So really 60 plus. We're talking about record field goals, dog. You hear me? I believe the record is what, 62, 63. So man, definitely a weapon. So I love the draft pick, dog. Mizutani then contributed to the conversation by raving even more about what they saw from Minnesota's rookie kicker this week. He's like a robot, and I wasn't out there every OTA, every day at a mandatory mini camp tracking kicks because, like you said, when we're outdoors, a lot of times the specialists just chill. They just hang out, the 3 of them, the 4 of them all together. But it did seem, and I'd be willing to go out on this limb, I don't know if he missed a kick that I was watching on Wednesday, and if he did, he didn't miss many. Hey, man, he's that guy, Roll Tide full of pride. Want to be NFL ready, go to Bama, dog heavy. Now it's still very early, but if Vikings fans want to be excited about the team's new kicker, it seems safe to do so at this point in time. However, there's a big difference between nailing kicks in an empty indoor practice facility and pressure-packed field goal attempts in front of 60,000 people in the actual NFL regular season game. Big facts, but guess what? He's not new to this. He's true to this. He's not new to this. He's true to this. You hear me? Yeah, huh? Will Reichard been kicking in big crowds, big games, hostile environments, you hear me? Away games, home games, playoff games, you hear me? So Will Reichard, man, like I say, man, he ain't new to this. He is true to this, dog. Any environment, any weather, indoors too, that's even better for him, dog. Ain't got to worry about trip off the weather, you hear me? Worry about the wind. So I'm sure he's even more excited, dog. Bama outdoors, homie, dealing with the elements, and he stood up then, you hear me? He was Mr. Clutch then. What you think he gonna do now? Enclosed facility, dome, you hear me? Let's get it, man. Talking about he ain't used to it. He used to the big lights. He played at Bama, dog. No one will blame a Minnesota fan if their past kicker scars prevent them from feeling delighted about the team's rookie kicker in the June. Understandable. But based on some of the comments from Collar and Mizutani, the Vikings might have actually found a guy to potentially solve the franchise's never-ending kicking woes. Facts, dog. Great news. You hear me? That's great news. You ask me in school territory. Like they said, it's been a problem. It's been a conundrum for quite some time. You hear me? It was time to fix it and nip it in the bud. I don't know why fans will be upset for the Vikings drafting the kicker. Best player available, player needed, you hear me? True weapon, and he's already kicking 60 plus. Yeah, like they said, it's against air, it's not live, nobody in the stands, but I don't care what you're talking about, dog. Like I say, it's going to be second nature to Will Reichard, dog. Like I say, he's been in hostile environments, violent crowd. We can say violent crowds, huh? You hear me? And he stood tall and made the big kicks, though. I understand it's the NFL, you hear me? Change of pace. Everything's different. The energy different. The nerves made, rookie nerves, whatever. But I'm sure he'll get over that, dog. But shout out to the Vikings because I think they could have potentially drafted a true weapon and they'll be set for years, set for years. You hear me? Dog. Shout out Will Reichard. Roll Tide full of pride. You know what it is. Skull Tide. No? You know? But at the end of the day, he got to prove it like everybody else, dog. But if he is the kicker, you know, if he shows, if he continues to progress, you know what I'm saying? Wins that number one kicking job. Come on, dog. He continued to hit 50 plus yarders, dog. And if it translates to real games, real live NFL time, dog, you know, big game moments, he gonna be ready, homie. He gonna be ready, heavy. Let me know how you feel about it, man. How you feel about Will Reichard? Let's get to it, man. Fire them comments up. Feedback is much appreciated. Like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you know when I'm on the rock and roll. It takes less than 1 second, man. Support the grind, support the channel. Big Skull here. Skull Vikes forever. You hear me? Win, lose, or draw. 1,000. Yeah.